Hello and welcome to Lyra Nara. In those truly challenging times that we're living through, more and more people suffer from anxiety and are in a constant state of stress. The problem with that is that it really weakens your immune system, as has been scientifically proven. So, therefore, we've decided to make a series of videos starting with this one today, where we give you some simple solutions on how to deal with your stress in an inexpensive, simple way, and therefore strengthen your immune system so you can face the daily challenges. Before we do that, please, if you enjoy this type of content where we talk about holistic health solutions, support our channel by liking, sharing and subscribing, and also hit the notifications button, that is the little bell icon, so you don't miss out on the weekly content that appears here. With that out of the way, let's get started and learn more about how to strengthen your immune system. So let's kick this off by defining what stress is. It is a condition when we are taxed with unpleasant demands such as exertion, strain, pressure, overload, nervousness, as well as physical alarm. And these demands are addressed to our adaptive mechanism, whether physical or psychological. There is of course no stress-free life, and we need really stress to live and be healthy. However, it is all about equilibrium. Life is a homeostasis. So there is good stress, such as short-term stress, and there is distress or chronic stress, which causes diseases because it weakens your immune system. And stress is the condition, and stressors are the triggers of stress. And those stressors can be external, such as nicotine, alcohol, asbestos, radioactivity, infections, or oxidative stress, or even allergens, or it can be internal, the so-called psycho-emotional stress that comes from fear, anxiety, panic attacks, depressions, worries, grieving, etc. When we are confronted, for example, with a very bad medical diagnosis, such as a cancer diagnosis, the stress becomes paroxysmal. Stress is actually an adaptation syndrome with three phases: the so-called alarm phase, the resistance, and the exhaustion phase. In the alarm phase, the initial incapability to adapt and react leads to a shock, a drop in blood pressure, a thickening of the blood, increased capillary permeability also, and this shock is followed by a counter shock with adrenaline discharge, shivering fits, a rise in blood pressure and temperature. The second phase is the so-called resistance phase, where we find an optimum adaptation of the blood circulation, the oxygenation of the cells, and formation of immune complexes. And the third phase is the exhaustion phase, where a necrosis of the adrenal gland cortex happens. We also have an involution of the thymus lymphatic mechanism, and we can see also formations of stomach intestinal ulcers. A long-term stress causes exhaustion of chromaffin and the chromaffin system with an adrenaline depletion and all of the bad consequences for our health. And this is an anchor point of cancer formation and of all chronic degenerative conditions. And when it comes to stressors, there are psycho-emotional stressors, chemical and mechanical stressors. Mechanical stressors are related to our posture, how we sit, how we sleep, how we move, how our job is keeping us for a long time in a wrong position, when we talk too rapidly or eat too rapidly. Nutritional factors are the kinds of foods that we consume, the cooking procedures that we use, our digestion and excretion patterns, whether we overeat and overdrink. This all puts, of course, pressure on our diaphragm, and also all the medications we take with their side effects. So what is eating us? Well, when it comes to psycho-emotional stressors, what eats us really from the inside is how we can cope with problems in life, so-called life adaptation issues, relationship issues, etc. And the brain will react with the reduction of CO2 lost through exhalation by reducing the airway diameter, and this is known as spasms. Asthma, for example, is the wrong diagnosis, and this disease does not exist really because it is an adaptation of the body to the wrong breathing patterns. And bronchial spasms feel like chest tightness, short breath, breathlessness, speechlessness, dizziness, vertigo, as well as heart and chest pain. Carbon dioxide is the best vasodilator, and with declining CO2 concentration in the blood, all tubes in our body will constrict, meaning the blood vessels, the lymphatic system, our gastrointestinal tract pathways, our urogenital tracts. The list goes on and on, as we are literally an air pumping engine working through over 65,000 miles of tubes within our body. And the drainage and detoxification function of the lymphatic system and the nutrients and oxygen transport functions of the circulatory system are the most affected by incorrect breathing. You must always keep in mind that your immune system is the defense mechanism the body uses to keep you safe from bacteria and viruses, and it is incredibly powerful, much stronger than most people realize. However, stress slows down some normal bodily functions, such as those of the immune system. Also, blood pressure and pulse rise, breathing speeds up, the digestive system slows down, the muscles become more tense, the sleepiness decreases due to the heightened state of alertness. And you can see in this graph, you go through a whole cascade that is, of course, triggered by stress. And we have the stressors here in the graph, the epigenetic factors, for example, the environmental stressors that we've discussed, also psycho-emotional shocking events, for example, a bad diagnosis or when you've lost a loved one, etc. Those stressors can also be, for example, the anxiety that you develop when you see people with masks and you hear all the frightening news, for example, now with COVID-19. The virus hysteria, the panic, the fear also about your own existence, which causes biological conflict on the lungs, especially also on the respiratory airways in general, and finally also on your kidneys. And all this stress, when it becomes chronic, affects your limbic system. You can also see this in brain edemas. And this in turn affects your autonomous nervous system. You will see dysregulation and a shutdown eventually of the immune system. And you will also see hormonal dysregulation, an adrenaline depletion, and a cortisol excess. Also energy blockages. You will experience sleeplessness, tiredness. In the body, we can find cellular depolarization. The body also switches to fermentation. We find, therefore, tissue acidity. And when we can resolve the conflict and get rid of our anxiety and panic and chronic stress, we see cell repolarization. And the adrenaline level will become normal again. And of course, this cellular depolarization causes also cellular membrane hardening and impacts thereby cellular nutrition and cellular excretion. So your cells become toxic and degenerate slowly. So you really trigger a whole cascade of unwanted effects that all make you weaker when you're living under constant stress and anxiety. What is the most weakening to our immune system and eventually makes us sick? Well, the permanent stress that runs our mind, emotion, feelings, and beliefs. Our bodies were trained during evolution to deal with a short-term stress, to fight and flight. The threats, of course, that come, for example, the lion coming out of the bushes, predators, or from the sky, so natural cataclysms. However, long-term stress, like we are facing now, due to the panic, anxiety, and fear about getting infected with COVID-19, losing our jobs, and not being able to secure the existential means for our families, is depleting us of adrenaline and epinephrine. And we also see the changes in the cortisol household, as we've discussed. And adrenaline is very important because adrenaline regulates the sugar metabolism. It is along with the hormone called glucagon, the insulin antagonist. And if adrenaline dries up the glycogen that remains in the cells, it cannot be mobilized. Consequently, glycogen will excessively accumulate in the liver and other cells, disrupting thereby the cellular metabolism and leading to hyperinsulinism. Decompensated adrenaline-deficient diabetes is the real culprit for all serious diseases. And due to the adrenaline depletion, several hormonal substitute reactions occur to save the body from the excessive glycogen. Most of seriously ill patients have a history of an overactive thyroid. Thyroid hormones excess causes morphological changes at the mitochondria level and forces the cells to perform uneconomic tasks through higher energy turnover, RNA synthesis, and the like. And thus the overproduction of compensatory thyroid hormones will promote cellular changes, laying down the formation thereby for malignant growth. At some point, this overproduction of thyroid hormones will exhaust itself, and instead of thyrotropic hormone, the tropic hormone LATS, which stands for long-acting thyroid stimulator, will rise significantly. If the adrenal medulla ceases to function, the pituitary gland will stimulate the synthesis of glucocorticoids, more precisely of adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH. ACTH, the hormone, lowers the cellular immunity, causes thymus atrophy, and damages other lymphatic organs. Finally, this can lead to a reduction of leukocytes and eosinophiles, which are the granulocytary leukocytes from the bone marrow. Substituting adrenaline could come from the overproduction of the growth somatotropic hormone, or SDH, and this hormone has a pronounced anti-insulin action, and its glycogenolytic effect was proven. The overproduction of this hormone then leads to excessive mitosis stimulation, which means an increased cell division. An overproduction of thyrotropin as a result of the adrenaline depletion forms an excess of calcitonin, which lowers the blood calcium by restricting calcium release from the bones and calcium discharge in urine. And this means that the preservation of calcium homeostasis is thus disrupted. All adrenaline substitute hormones enable the formation of sick, then malignant cells, and therefore they advance cancer or other degenerative diseases. Adrenaline coordinates the blood vessel dilation, and noradrenaline, produced outside of the adrenal medulla, triggers blood vessel constrictions. If adrenaline is deficient, noradrenaline will constrict all blood vessels, and this will lead to a generalized oxygen depletion. Many cells have the noteworthy capability to sidetrack and to switch from aerobic to the less efficient anaerobic metabolism in the case of a reduced or total absence of oxygen. The evolutionary relationship is that many aerobic cells are capable to restrict themselves to a fermentation metabolism in case of this oxygen deficiency. The problem is that during fermentation, the energy released through glycolysis is reinvested in the form of a more rich form of ATP energy. Respiration consists actually of two cooperating pathways: anaerobic glycolysis, which generates 2 ATP molecules, followed by aerobic citrate, the Krebs cycle, which generates 34 molecules of ATP for a total of 36 ATP. Glucose fermentation produces ethanol, acetaldehyde, and laboratory lactic acid, and those are all toxic for our bodies. The breakdown of the adrenal chromaffin system from continuous stress leads inevitably to adrenaline depletion, and this leads to an overload of the cells with glycogen. On one hand, the vessel dilation modulating effect of adrenaline fades, but on the other hand, the constricting effect of noradrenaline continues, and the effect of that is that we have less oxygen that is discharged to the cells, and the cells remember their phylogenetic capability of anaerobic metabolism and switch therefore to fermentation. And this has fatal consequences, as fermentation produces the toxic molecules such as alcohol, aldehydes, but also the laboratory lactic acid that we've discussed, which significantly increases the mitotic rate of cellular division. Adrenaline plays a really decisive role in the body's immune system health. Without adrenaline, the immune system is not capable to recognize the antigens, and all pathogens and other foreign bodies, such as mutated cells, release inflammatory defense messengers. So when adrenaline depletion happens, there is no immune system response possible. Only after each adrenaline discharge, the bacteria, the viruses can be identified and annihilated by the immune cell's response. Adrenaline is the agent which initiates the defense process in the body, promotes the formation of granulocytes and macrophages to combat infections, and the classical symptoms are rise in temperature, shivering, exhaustion, painful limbs, sweating, heart palpitations, as well as the formation of dextrorotatory lactic acid. And this in turn promotes adrenaline production and initiates an acute inflammation process which delivers the antigens for the immune system to do its job. A reaction to acute inflammation is capable of coping with the degenerated cells, and these are recognized by the immune system as a foreign body, which of course will be attacked. Some theories contend that lymphocytes are continuously on patrol to locate degenerated cells for an early destruction. Another consequence, unwanted consequence of the adrenaline depletion, which stems from the chronic stress state, is that adrenaline also plays a central role in the acidity-alkalinity household of our body. And for a healthy person, the blood pH is around 7.4 and the tissue pH at about 7.7, so it's slightly more alkaline than the blood. This slight difference ensures that all cells function smoothly in the finely tuned and balanced interaction. If the blood pH becomes more acidic, the tissue pH will become more alkaline and vice versa. And blood pH is regulated through respiration and functions only well if there is enough carbon dioxide in the blood. It should be at about 6.5% in order to buffer too acidic or too alkaline blood pH. And we see that all chronic sick patients have a lower carbon dioxide concentration because they do not breathe properly. They perform upper chest breathing, and upper chest breathing is of course also a sign for stress. People who are under stressful conditions, they also they perform upper chest breathing, and this upper chest breathing does not fill the lungs with enough oxygen. So if your breathing out is too short, it does not leave the necessary time to absorb the carbon dioxide into the blood, and the consequence of not breathing properly is that you will have a deficient oxygenation of the cells. And that in turn means that acidic waste cannot be excreted and are stored instead in the tissue to ensure at least a correct blood pH. Tissue over-acidification impacts and restricts the cellular respiration with accumulation of pathological cellular metabolites, for example accumulation of salts, which then eventually leads to the buildup of stones, for example gallbladder stones or kidney stones, but also an accumulation of uric acid that leads to gout and rheumatic diseases. And acidic tissues are the best environment also for starting nurturing tumors and for attracting pathogens and parasites. All chronic diseases such as Lyme borreliosis or cancer would be curable if it would be possible to establish the proper blood tissue pH of 7.4 to 7.7. In this case also the adrenaline efficiency is given and adrenaline depletion with all enumerated negative effects cannot occur. We've also learned that muscle activity can secure dextrorotatory lactic acid, which leads to a discharge of adrenaline and to an efficient glycogenolysis, dilation of the capillaries, increase in the heart rate, better cellular oxygenation, faster elimination of acidic waste, and this is pure health, especially when practiced regularly outside to collect also all of the benefits of the sun and the fresh air. Under the impact of today's lifestyle and toxic environment, microorganism overloads this beautiful embedded self-defense mechanism, and therefore they partially or totally shut down. Longer lasting malfunction of the acid-alkali household balance makes you sick. Okay, now that we have seen what stress can do to your body and how it makes you more vulnerable, how it decreases your immune responses, etc., let's come to the solutions. And one of the simplest solutions that costs you nothing apart from some minutes a day of exercise is proper breathing. I'm sure that you have noticed when you are stressed, your breathing patterns are in the following way. You breathe faster, you sigh more often and irregularly, you breathe through your mouth, you practice upper chest breathing, you can notice your breath, you pant maybe even, you could also hyperventilate or ventilate, you will feel a dry mouth sensation, and because this is activated by the sympathetic nervous system, your extremities will get colder, your blood circulation is impaired, and anxiety as well as panic attacks will occur because the body is not oxygenated properly. However, on the other hand, when you are relaxed, your breathing pattern is that you breathe much more slowly, about 6 to 8 breaths per minute. You practice soft breathing, you breathe only through the nose, you breathe with your diaphragm, you practice silent breathing, your mouth is moist, your extremities get warmer, your whole body gets warmer, the blood circulation is more homogeneous, the blood pressure is well regulated, and your mind is calm, you feel no anxiety, your panic attacks diminish because all of the cells in your body are well oxygenated. To transport and release oxygen to the cells, each hemoglobin molecule that is presented here in the picture on the right by symbolically by the carriages, by the train carriages, must have the following conditions met. In the lungs you must have 21% of oxygen. In the lungs the pH must be at 7.45. Only 4 oxygen molecules can be bound to 1 molecule of hemoglobin, and if you breathe faster or add an oxygen tube to your nose, you will not get more oxygen to the cells. To release oxygen to the cells, the pH must be at 7.35 and enough carbon dioxide, a minimum of 35 mmHg, preferably 40 mmHg, which is equal to about 6.5% concentration in the blood, must be present in order to open up the capillaries and blood vessels for proper oxygen transport. If these conditions are not happening concomitantly, there will be no correct oxygenation at the cellular level, so you will experience what is known as hypoxia. The cells which do not receive enough oxygen can mutate. This, of course, can lead to cancer. They will degenerate and they will slowly die, which is known as cellular apoptosis. Where the cellular environment is not sufficiently aerobic, also the bacteria and the parasites and the pathogens and most of the microorganisms which are anaerobic will find their nest, and you are much more susceptible to all kinds of infections. So you must practice proper breathing, and there are many different techniques out there. I'm just gonna to present you two of them which we find particularly interesting. One is the Buteyko breathing technique and the other one the Wim Hof technique. Over the span of 4 decades, Dr. Buteyko developed a program designed to normalize breathing volume. Using slow breathing and breath holds following an exhalation, the objective is to take less air into the lungs. With regular practice over a few weeks, breathing is brought towards normal with the resultant improvements to a number of common complaints such as asthma, rhinitis, anxiety, panic attacks, and sleep disorders. Buteyko breathing exercises are not dissimilar to exercises practiced by yogis. During his research, Dr. Buteyko turned to Eastern breathing techniques and combined these with the science of Western medicine. Central to the Buteyko method is a measurement called the control pause. This involves timing how long you can comfortably hold your breath following an exhalation. Having a control pause of less than 25 seconds is poor, and 25 to 35 seconds means there is room for improvement. The goal is to reach a comfortable breath hold time of 40 seconds. The Buteyko method consists of 7 exercises with a number of variations. The foundation of the method is to breathe only through the nose, both during day and sleep. Nasal breathing with the tongue resting in the roof of the mouth helps to ensure that the airway is larger. However, it is not enough. It is also important that breathing volume is normal and regular to improve blood circulation and oxygen delivery throughout the body. And of course, if you go on the internet, you will find tutorials on how to perform the Buteyko breathing techniques. Another breathing technique that I like to introduce to you here is the so-called Wim Hof breathing technique. If you've never heard about Wim Hof, he's also known as the Iceman. He holds many astonishing Guinness World Records for being submerged in icy water without his core temperature dropping, but also for being able to modulate his immune responses. And his technique is based on 3 pillars. The first one that we're gonna discuss here is the breathing. The second one is meditation, and the third one is cold exposure. And the Wim Hof breathing technique is really simple. Step 1 is get comfortable. Assume a meditation posture, sitting, lying down, whichever is most comfortable for you. Make sure you can expand your lungs freely without feeling any constriction. Step 2 is that you take 30 to 40 deep breaths. Close your eyes and try to clear your mind. Be conscious of your breath and try to fully connect with it. Inhale deeply through the nose and exhale unforced through the mouth. Fully inhale through the belly, then chest, and then let go unforced. Repeat this 30 to 40 times in short, powerful bursts. You may experience lightheadedness and tingling sensations in your fingers and feet. These side effects are completely harmless. Step 3 is called a hold. After the last exhalation, inhale one final time as deeply as you can, then let the air out and stop breathing. Hold until you feel the urge to breathe again. And then step 4 is the so-called recovery breath. When you feel the urge to breathe again, draw one big breath to fill your lungs. Feel your belly and chest expanding. When you are at full capacity, hold a breath for around 15 seconds, then let go. That completes round number 1, and this cycle can be repeated 3 to 4 times without interval. After having completed a breathing exercise, take your time to bask in the bliss. This calm state is highly conducive also to meditation, so don't hesitate to combine the two. And it is recommended that you do this exercise for about 30 minutes per day. But as with all breathing techniques, you don't have to start with 30 minutes per day. You can start with 5 minutes per day. Whatever your schedule allows you. Also, you can practice these breathing exercises when you feel anxiety coming up, when you're having a panic attack, when you feel stressed, and you will immediately feel the positive effects of that as you will calm down. And this will enable your immune system to work properly and to be strong in order to fight off any pathogens. With all that being said, I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation. If you did so, please support our work by liking, sharing and subscribing. Also, do not forget to hit the notifications button, that is the little bell icon, so you don't miss out on the weekly content that appears on this channel. And with all that, stay healthy. Until next time.